The question I'm asked an awful lot from those I'm mentoring is, how do I set boundaries in my life and hold to them? I've got responsibilities at work and with my family. My friends, they have expectations, and I'm always getting called to volunteer at my kids' school, for the neighborhood, and at church. Today, we're going to talk about at least one of the most common reasons why setting boundaries and holding to them is so difficult. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee or tea. I'm your mentor, Jane, and this is your time to relax and take care of yourself. The most common reason it's difficult to set boundaries is that you haven't answered this important question. How much is enough? Going through life unconscious about your realistic limits and not being intentional about where you allocate your time and energy, well, you're basically allowing other people or circumstances to set your boundaries. And if you're even halfway intelligent, hardworking, responsible, and caring, and I know you're more than that, those limits are likely stealing your peace. Some say that enough is more than what I have right now. Some think I could never do enough for my kids or my parents. Others say enough is a lot more than my sister, coworker, or friend has achieved. The dictionary defines enough as the degree or quantity that satisfies. For most of us, we unconsciously set our boundaries somewhere beyond not enough and before, whoa, that's too much. Look, let's make this real, and let me help you get a big picture of your boundaries. So grab some paper or open up one of your notes app. And I have a whiteboard that I prepared to kind of show this activity for you. Draw a horizontal line. And this line, the length of the line, represents the amount of time, energy, emotions you have in your life. It represents 100% of your total capacity. And recognize that there is a limit. It doesn't go on forever because we have limits. Think about the broad areas where you allocate most of your time, energy, and resources. For the purposes of this exercise, I chose 3 of them: work, people, which I included family, friends, neighborhoods, people in your neighborhood, church, family. And then the third, I put me, but what I really mean is your personal time. That could be leisure time, study time, whatever that you're devoting just to yourself. Now, the next step is to step back and think about where you are devoting your time and energy right now in each of these areas and divide the line into segments. You don't have to be exact about this, and if there's another important segment or another way that you want to label them, that's fine. You can do that. And you can also go into detail later, rewatch the video, but for now, just play along. Now, here's what I've done. I've made some notes on this whiteboard that represents how I see the limits that I'm setting. Here's my lifeline, and again, it has a limit to how much capacity I have in my life. And looking at my big picture, I drew some lines here, segmented it on the boundaries that exist in my life, or how I'm chunking the pieces of my life. For me, I'd say work is maybe about a little bit more than 50%. I spend a lot of time and energy on these YouTube videos because I want to be the best mentor I possibly can be for you. And there's a big learning curve with YouTube. So it's consuming a lot of my time and energy and even my emotions. The other people in my life include my husband, my sisters, the friends that I play bridge with, people at church, my small groups. And then this part is what I allocate to me for self-care, development, quiet time, and Bible study as I draw closer to Jesus. So about more than half of my energy, my capacity is spent in work. How is it for you? Again, you don't have to be exact. Just make some notes here as you think about it. Now, if this is a picture that, well, it kind of looks at the big boundaries that exist in your life, let me ask you, for each one of these areas, let me ask you 3 questions. Is this enough, too much, or is it not enough? Ask that for each one of the areas in your life. Now, for me, when I stepped back earlier today and thought about this, and I asked my husband for some feedback too about how he sees how I'm investing myself is another way to look at it. But I stepped back and thought about, how do I feel about these boundaries, these segments of my life? And when I think about work, as much as I love doing YouTube and I'm learning so much and it's an important part of my legacy, I think that I'm really devoting too much to my work. And I want to take back some of that energy and that investment for other areas of my life. And that would fall in the area of other people. I don't think I spend enough time with family and friends, and that could be just calling and texting to see how they're doing, or spending time with them, including my husband. And then for me, I feel pretty satisfied with the time and energy I'm investing in myself. So I'd say that's enough. So what does this mean, and what do you do about it? Well, this is where you can come back and look at these major segments of your life and make some decisions. Do I need to reset some of the boundaries that exist in my life? And in my case, I would say, yes, I have to go back and look at the boundaries that exist or don't exist in my area of work. So that's one exercise that you can do. And again, you can come back and spend more time with that. And I'm going to talk to my husband about that after we finish filming this and get some of his input. You know, it's usually pretty easy to recognize one extreme or the other. It's our fear of not having or doing enough, or the stress of being overwhelmed by too much. For example, don't you think being overweight is a pretty clear signal that your eating, drinking, and exercise habits are pushing your physical limits? When you're too exhausted to spend time with the family and you work through vacation, are you going beyond boundaries of ambition and power? Now I get it. It's tough to say no to your kids when they want the latest gaming equipment or the outfit that the popular girls are wearing. But if the credit cards are maxed out and there's no savings in the bank, you haven't answered the question, how much is enough? There's a moment of truth each time we choose between career and family, spending and saving, self-interest, and the greater good. These moments of truth come up in the most ordinary situations and decisions. Situations like, I really want to move ahead in my career, but how many hours am I willing to devote to work to get promoted? My son wants to join the traveling soccer team, and I want him to have every opportunity. But if he does that, that will conflict with the baseball season and his sister's tennis schedule. It seems like all I do is chauffeur the kids around, and while I'm driving, they're catching up in homework, so there's really no time to connect with them. By the time I get everything done at work and around the house, where can I find the time for quiet time or a small group at church? It's no wonder that exhausted and frustrated, people throw up their hands in defeat and ask, how do I set boundaries? My answer is usually the same. It's difficult to set boundaries because you haven't answered this important question. How much is enough? How much success is enough to prove you're good enough? How much self-sacrifice for the kids will make you good enough as a mom? How much do you have to give up to earn the right for some self-care? I'm not suggesting that ambition and caring for others are wrong. In fact, life is enhanced by our work and our relationships. They're what give us energy, make life meaningful, fuel our passions, and enable us to grow in important ways. But unless we get conscious and intentional about setting and maintaining our boundaries, these drives will conflict with our real physical, mental, and emotional capacities. We'll keep adding responsibilities and commitments. We'll keep making other people's expectations and demands of us our priorities. We won't live our own lives with the purpose and meaning God intended. Instead, we'll be living some makeshift version, going here, doing this, catching up, holding on, held together by threads of good intentions and long-lost dreams. If you're one of so many people who struggle to set and maintain boundaries, here's a chance to decide how much is enough. Go back to your lifeline, add any other major components of your life, and answer the questions. Is this enough? Is this not enough? Is this too much? Then join me next time as we look at another common reason why it will be difficult to set boundaries in the important components of your life. In the meantime, stay tuned for the final word. That question I've been asking you, how much is enough? It isn't so easy to answer, is it? It's not like the answer to how much is 5 plus 3. It feels more like what's the square root of 297.3 divided by 89. What comes up for me when I try to decide how much is enough is that my thoughts usually go to a couple of places. Oh boy, now I'm going to have to give up things that I like bread and chocolate and all kinds of sweets. Or, geez, I guess I'm going to have to tell people no. And they won't like that, and there'll probably be a confrontation. Or, it's impossible. I have commitments and responsibilities. I can't pull back in any place in my life. Here's the thing. It's true when you start getting clear about what's happening in your life and you attempt to make changes, you might have to face some guilt messages, angry reactions, and real consequences. There are real and likely impacts of setting, changing, and maintaining boundaries that result in helping you gain control of your life. But like any real and important challenge, when we set a goal and make a plan, we have to put our attention on something other than our fears and insecurities. My pastor reminded me this morning that we can never do anything well if we haven't made room for Jesus in our plans. Drs. Henry Cloud and James Townsend, experts in the discipline of boundaries, wrote, "The first steps will be the hardest. Still, go out and do it and look for His help." They meant Jesus. So what does that mean in the real world? Well, all I can tell you is what I'm going to do. I'm going back to my lifeline. And as I mentioned, I'm going to talk to my husband about it. But first, I'm going to sit quietly for a little while. And as I look at this, I'm going to say, so Jesus, this is what I think. What do you think? What do you want me to see here? Is there a change that you want me to make, Lord? And I'm going to sit with this. I might have to come back several times until I sense an answer or some kind of direction. And when it comes, as I know it will, and it will to you too, I'm going to take some baby steps and do it. And I'm going to ask Jesus to help me every step of the way. And that's the final word.